Our story begins in the royal palace of England, where Queen Elizabeth I supports Sir Walter Raleigh's dream of establishing England's first colony in the New World. To lead this ambitious expedition, Raleigh chooses John White. Preparations soon begin, and nearly 115 settlers, men, women, and children, board 3 ships for a long and uncertain journey across the Atlantic Ocean. They carry more than supplies. They carry hope, dreams, and the promise of a better life. Beyond the ocean awaits a new world, a place where they hope to build a brighter future for themselves and their children. The 3 ships sail steadily toward their destination, cutting through the waves of the Atlantic Ocean. On board, the settlers are filled with excitement and hope. Some dream of building a home on a new land, while others imagine a better future for their families. The laughter of children and the smiles of the passengers make the long journey feel a little easier. Among them are John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, and her husband, Ananias Dare. Eleanor is pregnant. She and her husband have joined the expedition in search of a better future for their unborn child in the New World. After a long and exhausting voyage across the Atlantic, the 3 ships finally reach the shores of the New World. Before them lies an island known as Roanoke. As the settlers step ashore, they are greeted by a world unlike anything they have ever seen. Dense forests stretch into the distance, surrounded by tall wild grass, marshy ground, and cold winds blowing in from the ocean. For a moment, they stand in silence, taking in this unfamiliar land. This is the place where they hope to build their future. Soon, work begins. Some settlers unload food, tools, seeds, and wooden crates from the ships. Others clear thick bushes and small trees near the shoreline to make room for a settlement. Slowly, signs of human life begin to appear along the once empty shore. A new settlement is taking shape, a dream that these settlers hope to call home for years to come. Time passed, and the small colony on Roanoke Island began to grow. Simple wooden homes stood where wilderness once ruled. Children laughed and played along the dirt paths. Women prepared meals outside their houses, while men worked on building homes, tending crops, and caring for the settlement. For the first time, it seemed like the colonists were finally creating a new life in this strange land. But then, a very important moment arrived. John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, was 9 months pregnant. One day, she suddenly went into labor. News spread quickly throughout the colony. Concerned settlers gathered nearby as several women rushed to help Eleanor through the difficult birth. The hours felt endless. Everyone waited anxiously. Then, at last, a baby girl was born. And this was no ordinary child. She became the first English baby ever born in the New World. Her name was Virginia Dare. The entire colony celebrated with joy. John White looked at his granddaughter with pride and happiness. Her father, Ananias Dare, held the newborn in his arms, overwhelmed with emotion. For the settlers, this was more than the birth of a child. It was a sign of hope, a symbol that their new colony might have a future after all. But as the months passed, life on Roanoke Island began to change. Food supplies started running low. Tools became scarce. Many of the essential resources the settlers depended on were slowly disappearing. The supplies they had brought from England were nearly exhausted. With each passing day, survival became more difficult. It was becoming increasingly clear that if help did not arrive soon, the future of the colony could be at risk. Seeing the growing danger, John White came forward with a proposal. He offered to sail back to England, seek assistance from Queen Elizabeth I, and return with food, tools, and everything the colony desperately needed. The settlers discussed the plan carefully. After much debate, they finally agreed. They trusted John White. They believed he would return soon with the supplies they needed. And with that hope, the people of Roanoke looked toward the future, confident that help was on the way. The next morning, the entire colony gathered to say goodbye to John White. The settlers stood together as he prepared to leave for England. Before departing, John turned to his daughter, Eleanor Dare, and said, "Don't worry, I'll be back soon." Then he gently leaned down and kissed his young granddaughter, Virginia Dare, on the cheek. With that, he boarded the ship. Slowly, the vessel began to move away from the shore. The people of Roanoke watched as the ship sailed toward the horizon, their eyes filled with hope. They stood quietly along the coastline, believing that John White would soon return. As the ship disappeared into the distance, the settlers continued watching, hopeful for the day they would see him again. Some time later, John White arrived safely in England. He missed his family deeply, but he remained confident that he would soon return to Roanoke with the help the colony needed. Without wasting any time, he began gathering supplies, tools, and support for the settlers. As he worked to prepare for the journey, the months slowly passed by. But then, an unexpected crisis changed everything. War broke out between England and Spain. By order of Queen Elizabeth I, nearly every available ship was called into military service. No matter how hard he tried, John White was unable to secure a ship to return to Roanoke.
No ship is currently available.
And as the war continued, time slipped away. 1 year passed, then 2 years, and before he knew it, 3 long years had gone by. At last, after 3 long years, John White finally had the opportunity to return to Roanoke. Accompanied by several ships, he once again set sail across the Atlantic Ocean. This time, he was more excited than ever. Throughout the voyage, he constantly thought about his daughter, his granddaughter, and the settlers he had left behind. He was certain that after all these years, they would be overjoyed to see him return. His ships were loaded with much-needed supplies, tools, and provisions for the colony. He had also brought along several small gifts for the settlers. And for his young granddaughter, Virginia Dare, he had carefully packed a small doll. Day after day, the ocean winds and waves carried the ships closer to their destination. With every passing mile, John White's anticipation grew stronger. He could think of little else. More than anything, he longed for the moment when he would finally see the shores of Roanoke once again. A few days later, the ships finally reached the shores of Roanoke. Filled with excitement, John White was among the first to step onto the beach. Clutching the small doll he had brought for his granddaughter, he hurried toward the settlement. As he walked, he called out for his daughter, his granddaughter, and the people of the colony. But as he drew closer, everything changed. An eerie silence hung over the settlement, where laughter, conversation, and the sounds of daily life had once filled the air. There was now only the sound of the wind. Some of the houses still stood, weathered and abandoned. Others had fallen into ruin. The settlement felt completely deserted. Panic began to set in. John White rushed from one part of the colony to another, desperately searching for any sign of life. The men who had arrived with him spread out and searched the entire area. But they found no one. No men, no women, no children. Not even a single animal. There were no bodies, no signs of violence, no evidence of a battle or struggle. It was as if the entire colony had simply vanished. Then they discovered something, a single clue.
Over here, sir! Come quickly!
Carved into a tree was one mysterious word, CROATOAN. And nearby, carved into another surface, was an unfinished message, Crow. Over the centuries, many different theories have been proposed to explain the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists. One theory suggests that the settlement suffered from severe food shortages. Conditions may have become so desperate that the colonists decided to abandon Roanoke and search for a better place to live. Some believe they may have built boats and attempted to leave the island, only to be lost at sea during powerful storms or dangerous weather. Others have suggested that the colonists were attacked by wild animals or by Spanish soldiers. But this theory faces a major problem. No bodies were ever found. There were no signs of a battle, and no evidence of a large-scale attack was discovered. The most widely accepted theory is that the colonists eventually joined a nearby Native American tribe. Faced with dwindling supplies and an uncertain future, they may have chosen to live among the local people and gradually become part of their community. Many historians point to the word CROATOAN as a possible clue. CROATOAN was the name of a Native American group that lived on a nearby island. Some researchers believe the carving may have been a message indicating where the settlers had gone. But despite centuries of investigation and countless attempts to solve the mystery, no conclusive evidence has ever been found. After searching for nearly the entire day, there was still no sign of the people of Roanoke. Exhausted and discouraged, the search party sat quietly along the sandy shoreline. Nearby, John White knelt in the sand. Tears streamed down his face. His thoughts were consumed by his daughter, his son-in-law, and his young granddaughter, Virginia. Again and again, he looked toward the silent settlement, as if hoping that at any moment someone would step forward and call his name. But no one came. The island remained silent. The men who had arrived with him were also tired and heartbroken. One of them approached and tried to offer John some water, but John barely noticed. His mind was somewhere else. In his hands, he still held the small doll he had brought for Virginia, the gift he had carried across the ocean for her. He pulled it close to his chest and sat there quietly, grieving in silence. Just then, the weather suddenly begins to change. Strong winds sweep across the ocean, and dark storm clouds gather overhead. With conditions rapidly worsening, John White and the men with him are forced to prepare for departure. Slowly, their ship begins to sail away from the mysterious island. As Roanoke fades into the distance, John White turns back for one final look. A small spark of hope still remains in his eyes, as if at any moment his daughter, his son-in-law, or his granddaughter might suddenly appear and call out to him. But no one comes. No voices break the silence. No answers ever arrive. Behind him, he leaves the memories of a colony, the memories of a family.
And a mystery that would echo through history for centuries to come. This was the mysterious story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke, one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries.
If you enjoy real historical mysteries brought to life through cinematic storytelling, don't forget to subscribe.
Because our next journey into the past begins very soon.